Buck is so good at that. I can't tell you how honored the LaSalle Club is that you flew all the way out from Florida to be here with your old coach Del Vandy, your good friend Ken Hotman, and the rest of your family. It's a pleasure to welcome you here, and a pleasure to welcome you to the Hall of Fame, John Martinez.
Congratulate my fellow inductees into the Hall of Fame. It's been a very big honor to be involved with everyone. I'd like to thank the South Club for including me in this great evening. And it's always a pleasure to get back home to Sacramento. I'm fortunate enough to have my three brothers, Jim, Jerry, and Jeff here. And Jim's wife, Debbie, Jeff's wife, Cheryl, chance to join me. Of course, my longtime friend, Ken Hopkins, who was inducted into the Hall of Fame a couple years ago. Teammates at Elk Grove High School and Sacramento City College. I'll give a little story about Ken, I'm going to tell you later. It's a pretty good one. But I was fortunate to come to Sacramento when I was 10 years old from Reading. My father moved us down from Reading, so we had more opportunity. We had great schools, we had more athletic opportunities, and we settled in the South Sacramento area. We had a little farm right behind where Costco is right now. And we played our League. Played at Southgate, League Group. I went to Elk Grove High School, played Elk Grove American Legion, and went to Sacramento City College. There are many people here that I'm very happy to see tonight, many people I haven't seen for a long time. And like so many of us inductees tonight, you all had an impact in our career. And each of you had a different impact. The players who played before us, we all looked up to. And as was said many times tonight, this was a great place to grow up and play baseball. We had the Solons here at this field, and we had people around town that knew great players, and those great players lived in our town. Woody Held was here. Howard Liddell was here. There were great players that we could relate to. And you remember the draft came in 1965. Ronnie King and Ken Wallenberg, all these great scouts that we really had to start to do their job in 1965. And in 1966, we graduated, and I didn't get drafted. I hit 500 in my senior year, and I could catch it over there, but I didn't get drafted, so I just figured I wasn't going to play. So we all got together, and we knew Coach Bandy had a great reputation in Sacramento City, and we all decided, why don't we go to Sacramento City? We could have some fun. And boy, did we have some fun. Coach Bandy allowed us to come and see ourselves more than anything. Al Simons, Greg Dvorak, Ted Fitzpatrick, Nick Piacentini. They were all great character guys, and we all developed as players together. Del Vandy gave us an awful lot of character because he had so much. He was the guy that wanted you to do your best every single day, and he would allow us to go out and play and be ourselves. And the biggest moment where Del showed me his true character was in May of 1967. I'd been drafted in the January draft. At that time, there were two drafts. The January draft and the June draft. Bill Adler was the scout that was my first bird dog, and he had called attention to me, Jay Bachman, and Bachman came up and watched me play, and I played in the Peninsula League a couple of years. And I got drafted in January. Well, back then, if you didn't sign before March 15th, you had to go back into the secondary phase of the team drafts. Well, we had a pretty good team at Sacramento City College that year. And we played Hanford, Chabot, Santa Rosa, beat them all. And we were going into the state championship to play the Pasadena City College team with Darrell Evans. And I had to sign and go into the draft. And Coach Bandy was nothing but supportive. And if I was going to sign, I was not going to be eligible to play in the state championship series. And Del Bandy came to my house and said, I want you to do what's right for you. And he allowed me to make that decision to sign. And I was emotionally hooked to the Philadelphia Phillies for Eddie Bachman, Bill Allen, John Bukovich, and Larry Bowen. Both played with us at Oak Grove and American Legion, and I wanted to play with the Phillies. Had I known what I know now, there's not a chance in hell I would have signed. I would have played that state championship game and gone out and probably been a first round pick, and who knows who I would have played with, maybe even the Pirates, right? But there were so many great players around, and Larry Bowen talked about his time, and obviously it was a great time. There were a lot of great players when Larry came out. But I can remember going to McClatchy High School and everybody talking about the ball to Leron Lee at McClatchy High School that went 9 miles, and we're still probably talking about it. We had so many great players, and I can remember watching Steve Green put on a great show all the time. And I went to Land Park today. I stopped by City College to see Coach Shelton's team, just to see where we played. It's a little bit different now, guys. But we played all our games at the school at that time, unless we had that rather than go to Land Park. But I went to Land Park, and it was just such a great opportunity for us to play. Because we had a good team. But on Saturdays and Sundays at Land Park, there were great baseball games in all 5 diamonds. And you'd see 400 or 500 people to watch a Sunday game in Land Park. And all these great players would come back from the minor leagues, and we couldn't wait to get back and play against each other and tell stories about our exploits during the summer in pro ball. It was a great time. And we did get to play against our homies. Dusty and I were roommates in Puerto Rico, playing for San Jose. And I roomed with John Bukovich in A-ball in Portsmouth, and brother took good care of me all the time. John Lorenzo was my teammate in Eugene, another homie that looked out for me. He had a great career in baseball, but a better career with the Sheriff's Department. Still part of this big community. Harry Dunlop was a big part of my life. He was one of my first coaches when I got to Kansas City in 1969. I thought I was pretty good. Got off to a good start, got a hit. My first hit came at my second at bat off Boom. Next day I started against the Twins and got 3 hits off Jim Cotton. I got off to a great start. Really hit the ball well. One day, I think I got 3 hits and we lost. So I'm in the shower, shaving up, feeling pretty good about myself. My pal Harry Dunlop saddles up next to me and says, "Hey, Rook, we don't celebrate when we lose." There's a big impact right there. It lasted for a long time. I had another great coach in Kansas City, and Harry will remember this, named George Strickland. And he was a sage old coach from New Orleans. I was 20 years old in the big leagues. I went from A-ball to the big leagues. I was way over my head. And George, I had a pillar in front of my locker in the old stadium in Kansas City. Right in front of my locker, big concrete pillar. I turn around that locker, that pillar was staring at your face all the time. And George was looking out for me as well, and he wrote a saying on this pillar that I turned around and saw every single day. He said, "John, it is sometimes better to be silenced and thought a fool than to open one's mouth and remove all doubt." I saw that every single day I was in Joe Gordon was another man from Sacramento that had a big impact. He was my first manager in the big leagues. I was 20 years old. Joe Gordon, of course, the Hall of Fame second baseman, great Coast League player for years. He was my manager. We go in to play the Washington Senators, RFK Stadium. Manager for the Senators. Ted Williams. I'm 20 years old, standing behind the batting cage, listening to Ted Williams and Joe Gordon arguing about the merits of swinging down and swinging up. Ted Williams says, "Oh, you little son of a bitch, you don't even know what you're talking about. You gotta swing up to hit the ball." And Joe Gordon goes, "You're crazy, Williams, you gotta swing down." And I'm going, wow. What an experience. Many years later, 1999, a couple of my teammates went into the Hall of Fame. George Brett, Robin Young, along with one of my winter ball teammates, Orlando Cepeda, and a fellow named Nolan Ryan. They all went in together. I took my son to Cooperstown, and my good friend, we went to Cooperstown for the induction ceremony. On Saturday, they have a great golf tournament where all the Hall of Famers come back to town and they play leather stocking, the great golf course right there. They go to Salle. The 18th hole is right behind the veranda of this beautiful hotel. So my son and I, my friend, are walking up the back stairs, and the golfers are starting to come back from the golf tournament. And there's a rail, and there's a couple of chairs and a couch. And a voice always, "What? Come on over. Come on over. We're talking about baseball." It was Tommy Lasorda. Tommy Lasorda leaning against the rail. Bill Madden, the great writer for the New York Daily News, is in the Hall of Fame. 3 or 4 other writers. Joe Cronin's daughter, and Ted Williams. Ted's in his wheelchair at this time. And Ted's telling baseball stories. And Tommy, to his credit, was the moderator. And Tommy would say, "Ted, tell us about the time you hit those 6 triples in Washington." "Oh, I never hit 6 triples." And they'd go to the book. So they get out the baseball encyclopedia. So then, Ted always was a champion for Shoeless Joe Jackson. And I talked to Ted about this, and he always felt like Shoeless Joe Jackson was the best player in the game. And he said, "Tell us about Shoeless Joe." Ted said, Eddie Collins, who was the general manager of the Boston Red Sox, came to San Diego to scout Bobby Doyle. Eddie Collins was a teammate of Shoeless Joe's in 1919 on the Black Sox. So Eddie Collins, scouted to be general manager of the White Sox, Red Sox, comes to San Diego to scout Bobby Doyle and notices the skinny kid in right field. And he comes up to Ted after the game and says, "Ted, can I come and talk to your parents? I'd like to talk to them about you playing for the Boston Red Sox." Ted was 17 at the time. And Ted said, "Yeah, you can come to my house. It's just my mom, but you can come to my house." So Ted ran home, told his mom that Eddie Collins of the Boston Red Sox was going to come over and talk to him about playing for the Boston Red Sox. And Ted said they had a hole in one of the chairs in his living room. And his mother said, "Ted, you sit on this chair and don't move. I want you to cover up this hole. Mr. Collins can sit across the table, across the room from you in the other chair." So now Eddie Collins comes in, they talk contract, they talk baseball, we're going to sign you. Yeah, that's good. Eddie, Mr. Collins, can you tell me about Shoeless Joe? How good was Shoeless Joe Jackson? And Eddie Collins just bowed his head and says he was simply the best. Ted Williams told us that story that day on the veranda at the Osaka Hotel. And he looked up at me and he said, "When did you stop playing?" I said, 1986. Now I think of this, my son standing next to me. He goes, "Son of a bitch, could you throw?" Man, that made me as proud as anyone to have my son standing there. Ted Williams recognized and remembered that I believed this. It was a great moment. But we all had that boy, Luke, Mike Straller, Old Palmer, Dusty Baker, give you an idea how old I am. I played with Bob Oliver in 1969. I just announced his son's last game in the major leagues this year. Darren Oliver retired after a phenomenal career. But Bob Oliver was a great influence as well. Another homie that played with us in Kansas City. And I see him all the time. He travels around to watch Darren play. But I think the one thing that I will leave you with, I was fortunate to play a long time, to broadcast a long time, to manage. I've seen a lot of these players. I saw Matt play when I was broadcasting, and got to meet a lot of people. But I traveled literally around the world with baseball. I was telling Leron earlier, I went to Japan this spring to do the WBC and broadcast that from Japan. Been to Venezuela playing for a ball in Puerto Rico. Went to the south of France for a baseball clinic in Holland. And it has been a wonderful life. When I was in high school, I had a young girlfriend whose father was a very successful businessman in Elk Grove. And he knew how much I liked playing baseball, and he was going to give me some wise, sage advice. He says, you know, John, this baseball isn't going to last forever. Well, I'm happy to say that it has. I've been very fortunate.